speaks in the Vanir tongue. I'm on Vanaheim.
The Rednega, Retrebectale, Frostgrinder, Jorgensen Agastic.
Frostgrinder. That's what the Vanir called their wretched parody of Bifrost.
To put it bluntly, Thor is a wretched parody of a game you might have enjoyed. A game like God of War or Dante's Inferno. Thank you for tuning in. This is DJ Fob Fresh from SegaShiro.com, your Sega resource. And, well, I'm here today to give you the lowdown on a little title on the Xbox 360 and PS3 called Thor, God of Thunder. Published by Sega of America and developed by Liquid Entertainment, the Thor game ties in with the recent movie that's been released in theaters. The game borrows many of the design elements of the movies, from character design to, of course, the actors' likenesses. The plotline is paper thin. Upon Sif's death, Thor goes into a rage, and then is manipulated by Loki over the course of the game. Frankly, you won't care, but it does give you the excuse to beat up some Jotun. It's unfortunate, then, that the combat system is so shoddy. Now, the main problem with it is twofold. One is the controls, and the other is the feel. So what do I mean by the feel? Well, essentially when you're in combat, you have no real way of gauging whether your hits are connecting or if your enemy's hits are connecting with you. This is a big problem over the course of the game, because you often will fall into cheap deaths just because you weren't quite sure who was hitting who. For a game that relies on combat, this is a huge problem. Adding to this fire is the fact that there's an actual tangible input delay between your button presses and Thor's action on screen. It makes planning for some of the greater boss fights and battles very difficult. Prepare for a lot of cheap deaths. The graphics engine in Thor doesn't help you along either. Generally, the camera is pretty wonky and will get in your way. The textures are murky and not always that great. However, some of the environments and the variety of environments is nice, and that's one of the shining points in the game. The game does use the Unreal Engine, and despite how common that engine is, the game still has frame rate issues when action gets intense. The more enjoyable sections of the game usually involve Thor hurling Mjolnir as a long-range projectile weapon. This is nice and tactile. It is a polished mechanic of the game, and it's unfortunate the developers didn't use it more often.
Thor.
Like Iron Man 2, the script to Thor is penned by comic book writer Matt Fraction. Generally, the voice acting is decent, except it doesn't quite have the emotive power to lift the story off the screen. The characters don't really experience too much growth over the course of the narrative, and this makes them seem one-dimensional. I guess in context to the movie, though, it acts as a bit of a prequel. Thor includes a variety of unlockables, such as a New Game Plus option, various difficulty levels. You can also find new costumes and unlock different lightning colors for Thor over the course of the game. The game also features a 3D mode. If you're lucky enough to have a 3D television, you can enjoy that. Of course, as with most brawlers, you can unlock different movesets and combos, and you can also unlock different abilities for Thor. And while this was cool, it was also a frustrating experience, simply because the game doesn't direct you in any manner. I learned the hard way that you had to unlock one slice of the pie before putting points in another section. It's kind of a harsh system, specifically because over the course of the game you fight different enemies that respond to different types of Thor's magic. By limiting the character progression in such a fashion, it actually makes the character feel much weaker than he does and acts in the comics. So you never really get the sense that Thor is all-powerful or an almighty god, which is a bit unfortunate and is a missed opportunity. In terms of sound design, the lightning sound effects, the thunder sound effects, along with the score, all seem pulled right from the movie. So in that sense, it's got some nice continuity and feels decent. It's not by any means outstanding, but it's solid. Now, I really wanted to save this section for the last bit, because a lot of Thor involves beating up absolutely gigantic enemies. And while in theory this is cool, there are some major problems with this mechanic. The first is quick-time events that come out of nowhere. In the middle of a battle, Thor will suddenly throw something different at you, and you'll have to hit a series of buttons with little to no warning. It makes for a really aggravating experience. Also, these battles are very, very glitchy, and there's something with the animations that it seems to skip some of the transitions during gameplay. This can make for a very flustering, clustering experience that just seems odd and broken. Should you buy Thor on the next generation consoles? No. It's a pretty broken game, it's not very fun, and it will leave you frustrated. God of Thunder deserves much more than this. This is DJ Fob Fresh signing out, playing broken games so you don't have to.